proof that Islam is the truth.
This dude is seriously creepy.
So I want you to look at this picture right here. This is a pattern of how the moon moves throughout the sky. And now I want you to look at this picture. This is an old date stock. They look pretty similar, don't they?
Uh-huh.
Well, according to this verse of the Holy Quran, Allah will cause the moon to move like an old date stock. This is exact proof that Islam is the true religion.
Ancient people knew how to track the course of the moon, as well as many other celestial bodies. Are you Muslims even trying at this point?
Yet people will still deny.
Gee, I can't imagine why.
Your response is what we could call an even if, but in fact response when combined with mine. So even if the Quran were saying that the moon follows this pattern in the sky, would not be a scientific miracle because, especially in the ancient world, they were really, really, really good at tracking the movement. They were obsessed with it. They were obsessed with tracking the motions of the heavenly bodies and so on. Hamza Tsortzis, who used to use the scientific miracles argument, it was his go-to argument, until he ran into an actual scientist and he got completely humiliated in front of everyone, and this caused him to rethink the argument. And by the way, that's the reason Ali Dawah eventually admitted that the argument has been debunked. Hamza Tsortzis came out and said it, and then Ali Dawah went ahead and admitted it. But Hamza Tsortzis, he actually broke things down. He said, what would it take to actually prove that the Quran is making miraculous scientific claims, or claims that couldn't have been known at the time? What would you need to show? You'd need to show three things, basically. One, you need to show that's what the Quran is actually saying. It's not saying something else. It's saying the thing that is being confirmed. This isn't you putting some modern spin on it. It's what is actually being claimed by the Quran. So one, you need that. Two, it needs to be something that wasn't known at the time. If people knew it and the Quran says it, then okay, you're just saying what people knew at the time. That's not miraculous scientific knowledge. People already knew it. And three, you have to know that whatever you're saying about science today is actually correct. In other words, you don't want to say this confirms it, and then 5 years from now, another theory comes out and that theory is discarded or something like that. Because then you'd be saying the Quran was confirmed by a theory that was eventually disconfirmed, and what are you going to do then? Miracle of reinterpretation, right? So IP's pointing out, hey, even if that's what the Quran is saying, this is something that people would have known at the time, and therefore can't call it a scientific miracle. Whereas I will argue that's not even what the Quran is saying at all. So you put both those together. So two massive problems, two massive fails, two massive failures of the argument. It fails in both ways. It could fail. We'll go ahead and grant that the moon looks like it moves in a S pattern or something like that. The other two things, it fails on both of them. Let's go ahead and read the verse, multiple translations, and we'll see if this refers to an S-shaped pattern in the sky that the sun is following. Ready? Let's go and read this verse. So Surah 36, verse 39, got a bunch of translations here. And for the moon, we have appointed mansions till she return like an old shriveled palm leaf. Notice it doesn't say the pattern that it has followed in the sky is going to resemble an old shriveled palm leaf. It said it says the moon is going to return and it's going to look like an old shriveled palm leaf. So it's not talking about the journey it takes in the sky. It says it's going to return, and when it returns, because it disappears for a little while, then when it returns, it looks like an old shriveled palm leaf. Let's see what other guys translate. Let's see if anyone tries to give them a scientific meaning. And the moon, Yusuf Ali, and the moon we have measured for her mansions to traverse, till she returns like the old and withered lower part of a date stalk. Hilali Khan, and the moon we have measured for it mansions to traverse, till it returns like the old, dried, curved date stalk. You guys catching that? It returns like an old, dried, curved date stalk. What's that sound like, guys? Crescent moon, and there's a part of a dried date stalk that looks like a crescent moon. Is this talking about its pattern in the sky? No, it's saying the moon looks like a crescent. Hey, look, it looks like an old date stalk. That's a yellow crescent. Shakir, and as for the moon, we have ordained for its stages till it becomes again as an old, dry palm branch and so on. I'm not seeing anything miraculous here. I don't see anyone giving it the scientific meaning that our little Muslim friend was suggesting. Is the study Quran going to say that this is referring to this S-shaped pattern? The idea is if you follow the course of the moon in the sky, it resembles kind of an S-shaped, and a date palm is kind of an S-shape. So when it says the date palm, it's talking about the motion through, and oh my goodness, how could anyone have known this? IP already pointed out they would have known that. But another problem here, it's just not what the Quran is saying. Let's look at some commentaries. This is the study Quran on this verse. So they translate it, and for the moon we have decreed mansions till it returns like an old palm stalk. This verse is a reference to the waxing and waning of the moon through the 28 stations of a single lunar month. Then we have like an old palm stalk. What's that mean? Does that mean that's the S shape that it takes in the sky? Like an old palm stalk is a reference to the appearance of what remains from a date cluster after its fruit has been removed and it has withered, when it resembles the thin crescent moon in shape, width, and color. Take an old date cluster after its fruit has been removed, and what does it look like? It looks like a little crescent moon. So the Quran is saying, hey, the moon looks like a crescent, just like the palm, an old palm stalk looks like a crescent. Is that miraculous knowledge, everyone? Because that's what's being put forward on TikTok to stupid people who don't know how to look any of this stuff up, and they're saying it's a miracle, and this is why people should convert to Islam.
Yeah, and in my video, I didn't even get into this because I was like, this is so dumb. I'll just grant for your interpretation for the sake of argument and just show ancient people knew how to track the course of the moon. Like, so even if your odd interpretation that no commentator has is right, it doesn't mean anything, because we know the Greeks tracked the moon. We know the Babylonians tracked the moon. We know the Egyptians tracked the moon and many celestial bodies. How do you guys not know this? Clearly, the Arabs could have just got that information from the cultures around them, or they just would have been in the same boat where they could just say, yeah, the moon is kind of there. Now it's kind of lower. Now it's kind of higher. It would have been hard for anyone in the ancient world to do when you were just looking at the night sky every night in the ancient world.
Let's look at two more commentaries, just so you don't think, well, who cares what the study Quran says? Here's Tafsir Jalalain. Tafsir Jalalain, one of the most popular commentaries of all time. 28 phases in 28 nights of every month. It becomes concealed for 2 nights. Oh no, the moon's gone. The moon's gone. Where's the moon gone? It becomes concealed for 2 nights when the month has 30 days, and for 1 night when it has 29 days, until it returns. So the moon disappears, then it comes back, and it looks like what? Looks like a thin crescent. Until it returns during its final phase, seeming to the human eye like an aged palm bough. In other words, like the stalk with a date cluster when it ages, becoming delicate, arched, and yellowish. So you take a date cluster and take the stalk, and when it's old, it becomes delicate, arched, and yellowish in a crescent shape, like the moon. Let's go to Muhammad's cousin or nephew, according to Daniel Hakikachu bin Abbas. And for the moon, we have appointed mansions. Like the mansions of the sun, it increases and decreases till she return like an old shriveled palm leaf. Where are we getting the miraculous scientific knowledge here, guys? For 14 centuries, ask Muslims, what is this talking about? What's it talking about? That the moon goes through these different phases and stuff, disappears, eventually comes back looking like an old shriveled date palm stalk. What's that mean, guys? Well, the old shriveled date palm stalk looks like a crescent moon. So the Quran is saying, hey, and then it comes back looking like that thing on the ground over there. So what's this? It's making an observation. Look, crescent. That's all it's saying. Miraculous scientific knowledge here? Yes, according to these guys, it's talking about the path it takes for the sky. And oh my goodness, this is amazing. So guys, now that we've read the sources, 2 ways. So 1, you can say, this is what everyone thought the verse meant, and there's nothing miraculous here. None of them would have even claimed that there's something miraculous about the amazing knowledge in the Quran there. No one would have even claimed it. But in the 70s, you had Maurice Bucaille, who got paid by King Faisal to come up with all these scientific miracles, and he made idiotic arguments like this, and Muslims ran with them because anything that confirms their religion, they'll run with. So anyway, for 14 centuries, no Muslims thought it meant that until this was put forward as miraculous scientific confirmation. And of course, as IP pointed out, even if you granted their new interpretation, even if you said, hey, 14 centuries of Muslims, they had no idea what this verse meant, it really means this thing. Even if you say that, on what planet would they not have known this back in the ancient world? And so what do? You hold a teddy bear and you act really animated and excited because you're gearing this towards 8-year-olds.